The Galactic Coalition's capital ship loomed in Earth's orbit like a metal leviathan, casting long shadows over continents it deemed insignificant. Aboard the dominance of harmony, General Krovic of the Thauran species peered through his ocular implants at a live broadcast of Earth's military exercise. His mandibles twitched with amusement. Below, on the dirt-covered plains of Wyoming, a group of human soldiers lay prone in camouflage, eyes fixed through old-fashioned scopes. No AI guidance, no plasma pulse rifles, just gravity, math, and patience. He turned to his aide, a crystalline Levian named Shasari, who shimmered with refracted amusement. They still use kinetic projectiles. Can you imagine? Shasari emitted a tinkling chuckle, primitive but endearing, like training monkeys to use slingshots. On the ground, Sergeant Elian Reyes ignored the distant sound of drones. His eye was glued to the scope of an M97 sniper rifle, his breath even, finger light on the trigger. Beside him, Spotter Corporal Jenna Pike adjusted her rangefinder and whispered, "Winds shifting east by 3 clicks. Elevation holds." He nodded, just barely. He didn't need fancy tech. He had instincts and decades of refined skill, skills Earth had never stopped perfecting, even if the galaxy laughed. The Coalition had arrived 2 years prior, not as conquerors but as bureaucrats. Earth was told it had graduated into galactic civilization, a shiny euphemism for annexation. Most countries complied. Resistance would have been suicidal. The Coalition spanned 1,000 systems, with battle fleets that dwarfed Earth's entire military history. But integration was polite. First contact was followed by trade agreements, cultural delegations, and the systematic dismantling of Earth's military doctrines. General Krovic had been assigned to oversee interoperability training, which translated to showing the locals how war was properly waged. Plasma rifles, tactical overlays, AI target selection. The works. Earth soldiers were taught to discard everything inefficient, which, according to the Coalition, included everything humans had ever invented. It didn't sit well with Reyes. He'd served through brush wars in South America, covert missions in Eastern Europe, and freezing operations in the Arctic. He had killed men from 2,000 meters with breath control and a steel nerve. Now he was told he was obsolete. His rifle was a museum piece. His techniques, culturally interesting but no longer relevant. They invited him to a demonstration. A Coalition marksman, a 4-armed division with telescopic eyes, performed a rapid-fire burst from a floating platform. The shots sizzled past digital targets, melting them into slag. The audience of diplomats clapped politely. Then it was Reyes' turn. He said nothing as he lay on the grass, set up his bipod, and adjusted for atmospheric drag. The range was triple the division's. His bullet struck the center of the target's forehead, a reinforced alloy replica designed to resist small arms. It shattered, not melted, not fried, shattered. No applause, just murmurs. Krovic chuckled into the silence. A quaint trick, but war is not a sport for antique tricks. Reyes said nothing. Pike just smiled faintly, eyes hidden behind mirrored lenses. Later that night, in a Coalition briefing room overlooking the Atlantic, the human commanders sat in awkward silence, while holograms of alien generals dissected their performance with barely concealed contempt. Sniper warfare, Shasari said with a polite trill, is a vestige of a less civilized time. In modern battlefields, the pace is too fast, the data too dense for such slow methods. Precision is automated now. General Masika, a human liaison from Kenya, cleared her throat. Respectfully, that slow method wins battles without destroying cities. Her words were met with diplomatic smirks and the occasional twitch of mandibles. Outside, the world turned. Earth kept listening, learning, adjusting, but it hadn't forgotten. In a dim barracks, Reyes cleaned his rifle with methodical care. Around him, other snipers, men and women, old and young, sat cross-legged, comparing notes, adjusting scopes, and whispering wind patterns like monks memorizing sacred texts. "We're ghosts," Pike whispered. "They don't know what that means yet." "They will," Reyes replied. "They think we're toys with bullets. They don't know what we've had to do with less than half what they've got." She nodded. "They laugh now. He slid a fresh round into the chamber. Let them. Far above, General Krovic watched the latest training statistics and waved his claws dismissively. Assign them to perimeter control. Keep them away from anything important. Their presence is cosmetic at best. Shasari hesitated, crystalline facets dimming momentarily. There are reports from outlying systems, insurgencies, guerrilla tactics. Some of the human methods might. Krovic cut him off. They are charming, like children play acting in adulthood. But war is not theater. Let them have their rifles. When a real conflict arrives, we'll see who survives. He turned off the screen. Down on Earth, Reyes and his team were packing gear. The Coalition had requested human participation in a peacekeeping mission on a volatile mining colony where rebellion had flared unexpectedly. No one wanted to go, except the humans. As their transport lifted off, Pike looked over her shoulder at the shrinking curve of Earth. Think they'll take us seriously now? Reyes smirked just a little. Not yet, but they will. The stars welcomed them like cold, ancient eyes. Out there, past the mockery and diplomatic smiles, real war waited, and it had no idea what was coming. The mining colony on Cormus. 9 erupted in chaos before the Coalition even noticed. Communications were sparse, filtered through outdated relay satellites. By the time reports reached the dominance of Harmony, over 3 dozen outposts had fallen. Local laborers, mostly smaller species the Coalition regarded as politically docile, had organized under a unified banner. They weren't asking for negotiations. They were hunting Coalition soldiers through the jungle-lined canyons and burning their hovercraft in ritual bonfires. General Krovic watched the footage in stunned silence. His talons clicked against the metal floor as an insurgent dragged a division commander from his transport and executed him on live feed. Primitive tactics. Unacceptable optics. He convened an emergency council. Holograms of high command flickered into the strategy chamber, species from across the galaxy casting judgment and excuses in equal measure. The phrase operational lapse was repeated so often it lost meaning. They've adopted guerrilla warfare, Shasari offered, voice tinged with embarrassment. Small groups, ambushes, no command center we can target. Savages playing war, muttered a Scarif admiral, his voice distorted by layers of filtering membranes. Deploy more drones. Saturate the terrain. Burn out the cover. Krovic's mandibles flared in frustration. Our tech fails in dense terrain. Scanners are ineffective through mineral-rich rock. The rebels are mobile and untraceable. Then use local suppression units. Already overwhelmed and demoralized. A human voice, calm and composed, spoke next. General Masika, attending via encrypted Earth channel, leaned forward into the light. Send the humans. The chamber fell quiet. Excuse me, the Scarif admiral hissed. You need soldiers trained in asymmetric warfare, she said. Earth has centuries of experience with insurgencies. We have specialists. Krovic chuckled without humor. You would send your sharpshooters into jungle traps and plasma fire? A noble sacrifice. No, Masika said. I'm offering you a solution. There was a long pause. Then dismissively, Krovic waved a claw. If you insist, but we will not divert resources to babysit a human experiment. Their failure is on your species. The transmission ended. For days later, the dropship touched down on Cormus 9's outer perimeter. The jungle breathed in heat and humidity like a living lung. Fog rolled through canyons dense with massive trees and luminescent fungi. Coalition outposts stood abandoned or in ruin. The human team moved in silence, boots sinking into moss-covered ground. Sergeant Reyes stepped out first, followed by Pike and 6 other sniper teams. All veterans, all volunteers. A junior Coalition officer greeted them with visible disdain. There's no command post anymore. You'll have to operate without oversight. Good, Reyes said, adjusting the strap of his rifle. We don't like being watched. They disappeared into the jungle without ceremony. Within hours, the first reports filtered back through the emergency channels. 3 insurgent leaders dead. No sound of approach. No evidence left behind except clean entry wounds. Panic spread through rebel communications. They changed positions, only to find their backup cells also eliminated. By day 3, a rumor had begun among the rebels. Shadow spirits with thunder sticks. No one ever saw the shots. They only heard the echo, a breath after their captain fell. The coalition dismissed the chatter at first, but the kill counts were undeniable. Human teams moved in pairs, covering terrain that drones couldn't navigate, surviving off the land, striking once and vanishing. Reyes didn't need thermal mapping or sensor overlays. He needed a stable branch in 30 seconds of silence. Pike carried a small slate, marking targets and timing routes. They moved like ghosts, knowing when to wait, when to breathe, when to end a life with mechanical precision. The rebels retaliated with traps, mines, plasma bursts in the undergrowth. But Earth snipers didn't travel by trails. They traveled by instinct. They're animals. One coalition officer muttered in disbelief as footage showed Reyes crawling through a rock channel barely wide enough for his body. Uncanny. No. Masika corrected to the secure feed. They're human. In the field, Reyes knelt beside a fallen rebel. Young, terrified even in death. He closed the boy's eyes with a quiet prayer. Pike didn't speak. She just handed him the next set of coordinates. The real victory came on the 7th night. Coalition intelligence had traced an encrypted signal to an abandoned mine, presumed to be the rebels' central operations point. A division assault team attempted breach and failed. 14 soldiers lost to automated turrets and low-tech traps. Coalition command refused another attempt. Reyes volunteered. He and Pike approached the mine under the cover of night, crawling through mud and roots, cutting power lines silently. By dawn, the entire command structure of the insurgency lay dead. Each leader shot cleanly through the skull in synchronized strikes. No alarms, no resistance. When the sun rose over Cormus 9, the rebellion was broken. General Krovic watched the post-op footage with uncharacteristic silence. No flashy explosions, no sweeping airstrikes. Just bodies, all killed with quiet, lethal precision. Shasari hovered nearby. They didn't request reinforcement or backup. Krovic's voice was subdued. They didn't need it. Reports spread quickly through the coalition ranks. Officers who once mocked the humans now spoke their names with a mixture of awe and unease. The division marksman who performed at the Earth demonstration refused to comment when asked if he could replicate the sniper team's feats. In the debrief chamber, Reyes stood before a semicircle of commanders. His uniform was soaked, his face streaked with ash. "You accomplished what entire battalions could not," Krovic said, eyes unreadable. "How?" Reyes shrugged. "We just did what you wouldn't." "Which is?" "Wait." Krovic said nothing. Pike leaned forward, her voice calm and cold. "You forgot that war isn't just speed and firepower. It's patience. It's knowing when not to fire." That night, back aboard the coalition ship, Reyes sat alone with his rifle. He could feel the shift in the air. Respect tasted different from contempt. He didn't care for either. He just wanted them to stop laughing. The coalition called them phantoms now. Not in their reports. Those still use clinical phrases like unconventional terrestrial assets. But behind closed doors, whispered by officers who'd seen footage that sensors couldn't explain. From Cormus 9 to the icy gorges of Verith Prime, Earth sniper teams were deployed where traditional forces failed. They moved without command, struck without warning, and left only stillness behind. Sergeant Elian Reyes had stopped responding to formal commendations. Medals meant nothing in a war where the enemy never saw your face. His satisfaction came from the moments between heartbeats, the precision of breath, the weightless recoil, the silence after a confirmed kill. Pike, ever at his side, said little, but her presence was a constant tether. They didn't need orders. They needed opportunity. And opportunity came too often. The coalition was unraveling. Insurgency sparked like brush fires on border worlds, fanned by rebels who studied human tactics and mimicked their stealth. The same generals who had dismissed Earth's methods now found themselves outmaneuvered by their own blind spots. In desperation, they requested more human operatives. Not battalions, not fleets, just pairs. Shadows. The war reached its apex on the desert moon of Naskar, where a coalition fortress protected the only viable portal gate in the sector. Losing it meant isolation and worse, surrender. The enemy, a sophisticated alliance of exiled species and defectors, had learned to jam coalition comms, intercept drones, and disable automated defenses. Their leaders were careful, mobile, and well-guarded. Traditional assaults failed, so they called Reyes. He arrived without fanfare. His gear was scuffed, his face unshaven, but his eyes scanned the map like a predator tracing scent. Pike followed behind, syncing her data tablet to localize weather patterns and terrain overlays. When a young officer offered them updated satellite recon, she declined. "It's 10 hours old," she said. "We'll take the mountain ourselves." They climbed under cover of night. It took them 18 hours, crawling through gravel, wind, and radiation bursts. No lights, no voice transmissions. Only hand signals and the whisper of rustling gear. From the summit, they observed the enemy base, layered in anti-air cannons, shield emitters, and roving guards. Pike tapped her scope. Window. 30 seconds, south balcony. Same pattern every hour. Reyes didn't respond. He adjusted the bipod, sighted in, and waited. Time passed without comment. A coalition officer monitoring from a safe distance would later remark that the sniper hadn't blinked for nearly 4 minutes. The shot cracked like a god's whisper. On the south balcony, the enemy commander fell with a single hole through his temple. Chaos erupted below. Guards scrambled. Alarm screamed. But no follow-up shot came. There was nothing to target. By the time counter-sniper units reached the ridge, Reyes and Pike were already gone. In the weeks that followed, enemy cohesion crumbled. Without leadership, their attacks became erratic. Sniper strikes continued, eliminating lieutenants, communications officers, tactical analysts. No pattern, no rhythm, only consequences. Rumors among enemy ranks spoke of death in the dirt, spirits that saw through walls and struck through armor. Morale disintegrated. Within the coalition, resentment brewed in private chambers. The old guard, alien strategists and admirals trained in textbook warfare, struggled with what the humans represented. Not just effectiveness, but contradiction. The snipers used no AI. They carried no plasma rifles. Their weapons were crafted from polymers and steel, not energy. And yet, they succeeded where billions of credits worth of war machinery failed. Kravik, watching from his command throne aboard the Dominance, no longer laughed. He studied after-action reports with clawed hands folded, eyes narrowed. What he saw disturbed him, not the kills but the consistency. Human sniper teams were not anomalies. They were a system, trained, distributed, scalable. What if, Shasari began cautiously, they are not Earth's best? What if these are just standard units? Kravik didn't answer. On the surface of Naskar, the humans left behind no banners, no messages, only the scorched impressions of elbows and rifle stands in the dust. Enough to tell anyone looking that someone had been there and had chosen to leave. Back on the transport, Pike reviewed the mission log. Her fingers hovered over a kill list, pausing at the last name. He was smart, she said. Reyes nodded. But predictable. Do you ever think we're too good at this? He looked out the window, watching stars slide past like drifting snow. Only when they start asking us to do more. Orders arrive within hours. Another world. Another insurgency. Another target too dangerous for orbital strikes. Too mobile for drones. This time, embedded in a civilian population where heavy engagement would spark genocide. Coalition generals wrung their hands. Earth's command sent 2 sniper teams. Reyes read the mission brief, then deleted it. We don't need the full details. You already know the angle? Pike asked. I know the pattern. The moment they realize they're not invisible anymore, they break. She slid a fresh magazine into her pack. What breaks first this time? He slung his rifle over his shoulder. Their belief that they're safe. The ship descended in silence. The world below burned in patches. Controlled chaos, feeding on fear. Somewhere in the smoke, another commander assumed he was untouchable. And somewhere on that field, Reyes was already drawing breath. Ash coated the rooftops like snowfall. The city beneath them had once been a coalition jewel, Nevera Prime, a diplomatic hub known for its crystal towers and art academies, where peace treaties have been signed beneath hanging gardens. Now, its avenues lay deserted, and its monuments crumbled beneath banners of rebellion. Smoke curled from shattered windows. Rebels occupied the financial district, using hostages and civilian shields to stall any direct assault. Drones failed. Negotiators vanished. Every delay allowed the insurgents to solidify control. From the remains of a collapsed clock tower, Reyes watched through a dust-scratched scope. He lay prone among shattered beams and bird bones, his silhouette invisible against the ruin. Below, market stalls lay toppled beside carts of rotting fruit. Somewhere among them, a man named Davin moved between buildings, a rogue commander, once a coalition analyst, now the architect of Nevera's fall. Reyes hadn't seen his face yet. He didn't need to. He studied behavior, patterns. Beside him, Pike monitored acoustic sensors and wind patterns on a battered display tablet. He's pacing in a loop, always the same circuit. 8 minutes. Escorts with children, hostages. He's learned to layer protection. He knows we're here, Reyes murmured. He wants us to hesitate. Reyes dialed his scope. He wants to believe we're like him. On the next pass, Davin reached a rooftop garden. His guard spread out. He stopped for a breath beneath an old sunshade, exactly as he had 6 times before. Reyes exhaled and pulled the trigger. The silence that followed was not a vacuum, but a collapse. Every moving part of the rebel occupation froze in the wake of that shot. Davin's body folded gently forward, head pierced cleanly through the eye. No warning, no spectacle, just a single, irreversible moment. 2 seconds later, Pike whispered, "Echoes in the East Quarter. They're panicking. Pulling out. Some. Others are frozen. No leader. No plan." Coalition ground units moved in 3 hours later. Resistance had already fractured. The city was reclaimed with minimal bloodshed. Reyes and Pike didn't wait for praise. They returned to the transport hangar beneath an orange sky. Pike's uniform was stained with dust and blood. Not her own. She checked her rifle, then leaned against the support beam. "They're calling it a humane victory." Reyes didn't look up. He was cleaning his bolt mechanism with practiced care. "They still think we win because we aim well. They don't see the wait, the hours in silence. They never will." Later that night, they received encrypted orders. Not just another mission, a proposition. Earth's High Command wanted to formalize what Reyes and Pike had become. Not an elite force, but a doctrine, a philosophy. Silent warfare, they called it. An entire division dedicated to asymmetric precision conflict. Multi-species, human-trained, snipers of the new frontier. "They want us to teach," Pike said. Reyes stared out the window at Nevera's reconstructed skyline. "Teaching turns tools into mirrors. They'll see what we become. And still ask for more." He didn't answer. But 2 weeks later, he stood on the stone ridges of Liction 4, watching the first recruits crawl through heat-soaked valleys. They weren't soldiers yet. They were thinkers, listeners, endurance addicts. Some broke within days. Others adapted. A division named Kala learned to move through shadows faster than any human spotter. A Levian, half-blind, mapped wind through vibration sensors and corrected his aim by sound alone. Pike trained them in stealth theory. Reyes taught breathing discipline, when to inhale, when to die. None of the recruits spoke during practice. They learned silence like a language. But peace remained a mirage. When the rogue fleets of the Coalition splintered and a former admiral seized control of the Erythian Gate, it wasn't a question of whether war would follow. It was a matter of how quickly. The gate provided direct access to 7 star systems. If the Coalition lost it, the war would fracture into chaos. Standard forces couldn't breach the fortress. Drones were jammed. Tanks couldn't deploy. The new commander, a defector named Arvik, dared the galaxy to stop him. So they sent the ghosts. 10 sniper teams arrived silently, dressed not in insignia but terrain-adapted armor. Pike walked among them like a quiet storm, adjusting rifle stocks, reviewing terrain heat maps, correcting sighting angles by centimeters. Reyes watched from a ridgeline above the fortress as his legacy unfolded below him, not through metals, but in movement. The fortress boasted energy shields, sensor towers, even psychic dampeners. But none of it stopped the shots. One commander fell at noon. A logistics coordinator died during lunch. A gunship engineer collapsed before he could refuel the central core. No alarms, no missed shots, just precise silence. Arvik's fleet surrendered in 28 hours. No reinforcements had ever arrived. The coalition declared a planetary victory. Holonet anchors whispered of Earth's sharpest minds and surgical interventions. But even they struggled to explain how one division, acting in silence, could bend a planetary siege to its knees. Back aboard the Dominance of Harmony, General Kravik stood before Reyes. This time, he didn't speak with mockery or doubt, just curiosity. "You've changed the calculus of war," he said. Reyes didn't respond. "You could have demanded anything," Kravik continued. "Command control. Why remain in the field?" "Because the galaxy hasn't learned yet," Reyes said. "They still think the threat is what we shoot." Kravik's mandibles twitched. "And what is it really?" Pike spoke from the shadows. "It's that we see them before they see us. It's that we choose not to shoot, and then sometimes we do." Kravik gave a shallow nod. "Then let your silence keep them afraid." But Reyes had already turned away, not toward metals or rest, but toward a new horizon. Another star. Another enemy who believed their fortress was unbreakable. He didn't need parades or statues. He needed patience. Because the galaxy had once laughed at Earth snipers. Now it trembled before their breath.